Sometimes, listener, the most extraordinary journeys, they begin with unimaginable hardship.
Yeah,
And in the case of today's deep dive, well, that's certainly true.
totally.
We're exploring the life of a man whose stories, they kind of blend the extraordinary with the deeply personal.
Right.
His experiences, they really make you question the very nature of reality and what's truly possible.
Yeah, they really do. It's a fascinating exploration of belief and perception and the human capacity for incredible resilience, but also, profound experiences.
His story, it begins in 1979 in Puerto Rico. Imagine being a 3-year-old boy witnessing something that no child should ever see.
Oh gosh.
His father attempting to drown his mother in the bathtub.
Wow, that's a deeply traumatic experience, one that could easily, have a lifelong impact.
And it seems to have been a catalyst for a series of events that, well, they defy easy explanation. The very next year, at just 4 years old, he gets his first bicycle.
Okay.
Pretty typical childhood milestone, right?
Mhm.
Except he hops on this bike with no training wheels, and just like that, he's riding it flawlessly as if he'd been doing it his whole life.
That's incredible. Almost like the trauma unlocked some hidden potential or instinct.
It really makes you wonder, could a traumatic experience in some strange way be a trigger for something extraordinary? What do you think, listener?
It's a fascinating question. There's this concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. And it suggests that individuals can actually experience significant positive changes following a crisis.
So maybe that's what we're seeing here. This idea of overcoming challenges, it becomes a recurring theme throughout his life. He even describes his experiences as a blend of the wonderful and the painful, almost as if each hardship is followed by something extraordinary.
Like he's oscillating between these two extremes, constantly pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible.
Exactly. And speaking of pushing boundaries, let's dive into some of his, well, more unbelievable stories. When he was 4 years old, he suddenly collapsed with this, severe abdominal pain.
Oh, no.
His mother rushed him to a local clinic, and the doctor there diagnosed him with gastroenteritis.
Okay, yeah, common enough ailment, especially in, young children.
Right, but here's where things take a turn. A lady doctor, she seemingly appears out of nowhere and insists that he be taken to the central hospital immediately.
It's almost like a guardian angel in a doctor's coat, appearing just when he needed it most.
And at the central hospital, they discover he has acute appendicitis. The doctors told his mother it's a miracle it hadn't ruptured. They said someone must have been watching over him.
That's incredible. Was this mysterious lady doctor just a lucky coincidence, a medical professional happening to be in the right place at the right time, or was it something more? Perhaps even, divine intervention.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? And these inexplicable events, they don't stop there. Fast forward a few years, he's 12 years old, and he's taken to a special church service.
Oh, interesting.
Now, this is important. He has flat feet.
Okay.
Diagnosed, confirmed, the whole 9 yards.
And flat feet there's a fairly common condition.
Exactly. But during this service, a preacher known for performing miracles, he prays for him. This preacher was known for healing people's, believe it or not, dental problems and giving people arches in their feet.
Wait, hold on. He claims to heal flat feet.
You heard that right. And get this, after the preacher prays for him, the narrator claims that his flat feet, they were gone. He even checked later by wetting his feet and looking at the imprint, and there they were, arches.
Okay, now this is where things get particularly interesting. While there's no denying the power of belief and the placebo effect to physically alter the structure of someone's feet like that, that's a whole other level.
It really is, and this is just the beginning. His story, it gets even more incredible from here. Ready for more?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
So here we are with this incredible story, and it feels like we're just scratching the surface, you know? Yeah.
When he was 19, he started experiencing this unexplainable feeling, like something was off.
Okay.
It was a feeling of confusion, of things just, not being quite right. And it really started to weigh on him.
Those feelings of unease, that sense of something being amiss, it can be very unsettling.
Absolutely. And in this case, it led him to seek guidance from his pastor.
Yeah, turning to a spiritual advisor for comfort and understanding, that's a pretty common human response to the unknown.
He was hoping for some clarity, some answers, but what happened during that meeting was far more intense than either of them could have anticipated.
Oh, wow, so what happened?
They met at the church, and as the pastor began to pray, they escalated very quickly. He described feeling this other presence, this heavy, almost suffocating feeling.
Like something else entered the room. Exactly. He refers to it as an entity,
Okay.
and it was definitely not a benevolent one. He says the pastor's prayers, instead of bringing peace, they seem to intensify this entity's presence.
It's like those stories of spiritual warfare where, unseen forces are clashing in the spiritual realm.
And that's exactly what this felt like, a battle for his well-being, for his very soul.
He must have been terrified.
He was caught in this tug of war between these two forces. He could feel their energy, their emotions, even their thoughts, and it was overwhelming.
From a psychological perspective, that type of experience, it could be interpreted as a form of dissociation, an altered state of consciousness.
It's certainly a possibility, but what he describes next is hard to dismiss as just a psychological phenomenon. He said that as the pastor continued to pray, he could feel this entity's anger, like the prayers were weakening its connection to him, to his family.
So there's this implied link between this entity and his family line, like a generational curse.
Exactly. He felt it too. And as the struggle it reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. He had a vision of a legion of angels.
Wow, angelic beings appearing as protectors and guides, that's a common thread in many, many spiritual traditions.
Leading this legion was this powerful female warrior angel, and it was through her, he says, that the entity was banished, gone from his life and from his future generations.
A definitive act of spiritual cleansing, a victory over the forces of darkness.
And you can really feel that shift in his storytelling after this event. It's as if this experience, as terrifying as it was, it brought a sense of peace, a sense of protection, a knowledge that he was no longer alone in his struggles.
It's a powerful, powerful realization.
Mm.
To know that even in our darkest moments, there might be forces looking out for us, guiding us towards the light.
He emerged from that experience changed, and his journey continued, marked by more encounters with the unexplained. Just a year later, his aunt suffered a massive stroke, and she was declared clinically dead.
That's heartbreaking.
Imagine the grief, the sense of helplessness.
Of course.
He rushed to the hospital and found his family arguing over whether to take her off life support.
That's a decision so many families face, a truly agonizing choice.
He went to his aunt's bedside and prayed, just pouring out his grief, his hope. And as he prayed, he had another vision. Another one. This time, he saw his aunt's spirit, but it was being held back, restrained by this strange being with a large, round head.
This is where we start to see elements of what some might call astral projection, an out-of-body experience.
He's somehow transported to this other realm, this place where spirits and entities interact.
Fascinating.
And he doesn't hesitate. In this vision, he confronts the entity, demanding it release his aunt's spirit.
Oh, wow. And was the entity surprised?
He says it seemed surprised that he could even see it, and angry, but eventually it released her. And that's when his aunt squeezed his hand. He called for his cousin and her husband, and they rushed in, skeptical at first.
You can't blame them for being skeptical.
Of course not, but then it happened again. His aunt, she squeezed his hand right in front of them. They called the doctors, who dismissed it as muscle spasms.
Yeah, a natural reaction,
Why?
to try and explain the unexplainable.
But 5 days later, his aunt, she made a near full recovery. The doctors were baffled. She was released from the hospital, and within days, she was back to her old self.
It makes you wonder, was it a medical miracle? A spontaneous remission? Or was it something more, something beyond our current understanding?
We're left with those questions, aren't we? And as we delve deeper into his story, we encounter even more extraordinary events, stories that blur the line between the spiritual and the physical in ways that they're hard to fathom. Ready to continue our exploration?
I'm ready when you are.
As we kind of, journey deeper into this man's experiences, it's like we're entering this realm where the line between the spiritual, the physical, it gets really blurry.
Yeah, it's like stepping into a world where the impossible, it feels, almost within reach.
So during his teenage years, he has this encounter that really leaves a lasting impression on him, right? He meets this preacher, and this preacher claims to possess something extraordinary. Photographic and video evidence of the spiritual world.
Wow, so now we're venturing into the territory of spirit photography, a concept that has, captivated and mystified people for well over a century.
Right, and this preacher, Benicio Molina, he shows them pictures taken during church services and describes these figures, some of them resembling animals, others like these ethereal lights hovering above the congregation.
Okay, so with any claim like this, especially with, older photographs, We have to at least consider the possibility of trickery, double exposures
Yeah.
or even early special
Oh,
effects.
of course. But then he mentions a video, and we're talking about the 1980s here, a time when video editing was far less sophisticated than it is today, right? And he vividly describes this radiant entity seemingly just like floating above the people gathered in the church.
It makes you wonder, what if our eyes don't,
Or
what if they don't capture everything? What if there are dimensions that are only visible through specific technologies or perhaps even,
Yeah.
to certain individuals?
Right. It's a question that really sparks the imagination, doesn't it? And this encounter, it leads him to another one, this time with a woman he called an alchemist. This woman, she allegedly possessed the remarkable ability to produce oil from her Bible and weep tears that crystallized.
That sounds like a potential case of religious ecstasy, a phenomenon that's been documented in, various cultures and historical periods.
Yeah, he described her as having this tattooed cross on her forehead, although she claimed it wasn't a tattoo in the traditional sense, but rather a manifestation of the Holy Spirit. And as the church service progressed, she began to weep these glistening crystal tears. She even shared these crystals with members of the congregation.
It speaks to the powerful connection, between faith, belief, and the physical body, how they can manifest in extraordinary, even if unexplained ways.
It really does. It challenges our understanding of what's possible, doesn't it? And the stories, well, they don't stop there. He also recounts this experience involving his father and a woman who was dying of cancer.
Yeah, and faith healing, that's a complex and often, debated topic.
Hmm.
While there are certainly documented cases of spontaneous remission, attributing those events solely to supernatural forces, that requires careful consideration.
For sure. And his father, he had this unwavering faith in the power of prayer. They went to the hospital to visit a woman who was very close to his father's heart, and the doctors had given her only a week to live. Her
Wow.
cancer was extremely advanced.
That's a devastating diagnosis, one that often leads people to seek comfort and hope wherever they can find it.
And his father believed that hope, it resided in prayer. So he goes to see this woman, while our subject, he waits in the lobby, and the next day they receive astounding news from the hospital. The woman had made this almost miraculous recovery.
It's important to remember that, correlation doesn't equal causation. While the timing of her recovery, it might seem significant, attributing it solely to prayer, it overlooks other possibilities, such as, the body's own innate ability to heal, or even the possibility of a misdiagnosis.
You're absolutely right. It's crucial to keep an open mind and consider all possibilities. Now, get ready for a real shift in perspective here. You see, raised in a devout Christian household, he was always taught that sex before marriage was a sin.
Right, a common tenet in many religious traditions.
Were. But as he explored a romantic relationship with his girlfriend, something unexpected happened. The closer they became, the more connected he felt to God. He even described hearing angels laughing.
This is so interesting because it challenges these traditional interpretations of spirituality and sexuality,
Yeah.
highlighting the deeply personal nature of faith and how our understanding of it can really change and evolve throughout our lives.
Absolutely, and it made him question everything he'd been taught, opening his mind to these new possibilities. And then his journey takes yet another surprising turn when he begins to suspect that his girlfriend, she might have cancer.
Yeah, and intuition can be a powerful force, often guiding us in ways that we don't fully understand.
And on their very first night together, he couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. He urged her to see a doctor, trusting his instincts.
He listened to that inner voice, that feeling that something wasn't right.
And it turned out to be the right call. His girlfriend, she was diagnosed with early stage cancer, but because of his intuition and her prompt treatment, she made a full recovery.
That's an incredible story of how trusting our gut feelings, even when they seem, unusual, it can lead to these really profound outcomes.
It really can. This man's life, it's been this tapestry woven with these threads of hardship and resilience, these extraordinary experiences. His stories, regardless of your own personal beliefs, they invite us to consider. What if our understanding of reality is far more expansive than we realize? What if the impossible is merely a possibility just waiting to be embraced? Listener, have you ever experienced something that challenged your perception of what's real? Something that made you question the boundaries of the possible? We'd love to hear your thoughts.